Hi everyone, how's everyone doing here today? Just wanted to say thank you for watching. It's been a while, I've been a little busy, and today I just wanted to talk about briefly transgenders, because that's been a pretty hot topic that's been going around lately. There's been a lot of violence towards them and a lot of misunderstanding towards them, so I decided to at least take a little time to look into it, get a better idea of what it is, and try and explain it to a certain degree. Now, mind you, I'm no expert on this, so I'm going to be talking about a few medical things. So, whatever conclusions you draw, that's up to you. But if you're not sure, I would say do a little research of your own. So from what I read, transgender dates back to like 1973. It was recognized as a mental disorder. Which begs a simple question, is it biological or is it psychological, which I'll get into. The other thing is, just some of the simple terms, which, this is the part where I think it gets a little complicated, both for myself and for others. There's gender dysphoria. That's the feeling of discomfort or distress that occurs when gender identity differs from sex assigned at birth. There's cisgender, which is, I think, pretty much where I fall under. It's one whose identity aligns with their sex assigned at birth. There's agender, one who doesn't identify with any gender label or use, gender or as part of their identity. And then there's non-binary, which is one whose identity is a combination or goes beyond the gender binary of male and female. So, now here's some other interesting statistics from the CDC. Is that almost 2% of high school students identify as transgender. And of those 2%, 27% of them feel unsafe, 35% of them have been bullied, and 35% of them have committed suicide. So I don't think it's something that should be taken lightly. I've met one or two transgender people in my past. That's how few they are. Have I ever had a chance to sit down and talk to them to get a better idea of what it is? No. So, like I said, it amazes me how there are a lot of people out there that are quick to hate. And to me, this is just mostly a bunch of fear-mongering. All right? Years ago, like during the Trump administration back in 2016, it was the border crisis. And that was something we used to hear about almost with the midterms and when certain other elections came up. Like, they're coming to get you, they're coming across the border, we need to do something about it. Now lately, since the whole woke thing, which going on with some lowlifes like Ron DeSantis in Florida, everything's like, oh, they're going woke, and part of that woke is transgender, they're out to get your children, they're out to indoctrinate them or something like that. But is that what's really happening? So, and then there comes the term gender-affirming care, which there's two types of treatments. There's like non-surgical treatments, like laser hair removal, hormone therapy, voice therapy, and mental health care. And there's also the more extreme surgical treatments, such as facial reconstruction, chest and breast surgery, which is called top surgery, and then there's gender surgery from the waist down, which is referred to as bottom surgery. Back when I was in, like from junior to high school, they used to teach us about this, but they didn't have transgenders back then, at least to my knowledge. The two things that stood out, which again, they talked about in health class, were transvestites and transsexuals. Transvestites being one who dressed like the opposite gender, and transsexuals who went to the far extreme of altering themselves surgically to be like the opposite gender. And, there was a discrimination of them back then. Now, there's been a lot of talk from certain haters like Matt Walsh, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and even Donald Trump is starting to echo some of it. From Trump, it's just a question of, I'm just saying what I have to do to get my transphobic base riled up for support. Does he know anything about this? No, I don't even think he cares. He's hateful, he's ignorant, and like I said, he's just regurgitating talking points and everything. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's always one that's like, gender mutilation and stuff like that. They're not doing sex change operations to children, okay? Now, doing some research, I found some small cases where teens that were older, like around age of 15 are allegedly getting some type of surgical treatment. There was one case with a Chloe Cole who received a double mastectomy at the age of 15. And supposedly there was another place, like I believe it's the Boston Hospital, the one that Matt Walsh targeted with a lot of his lies. Yes, he was lying or grossly exaggerating, claiming that there were things going on there that weren't exactly happening. And that was leading to bomb threats and death threats against the staff there. That's where the danger comes in. It's because it's mostly misinformation. And for people like Matt Walsh, it's not about understanding. It's not about any concern for the children. Same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. It is all about bigotry. It is all about spreading hate to get people on board. Now, me personally, do I think they should be doing surgical options on like teens, like 14 or 15? No. Once they get over the age of 18, then they can start making decisions for themselves. Now, the other thing to also understand is that gender-affirming care is not always like invasive. Like when it's done to children, mostly it's just therapy and stuff like that. They have been known to use puberty blockers on children. Now, I don't know what age exactly, so again, don't quote me on this. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not here to give medical advice. What I have read is that puberty blockers are also used to actually treat certain disorders. Like there's a condition, I'm not sure what it's called, where a child or a youngling will be going through puberty at an accelerated rate, which can cause long-term negative effects to them as they get older. So they use puberty blockers just to slow down the process so they go through it at a gradual normal pace, and they live a healthier life. And here's the other thing to keep in mind. Gender-affirming care is not exclusively for trans. Gender-affirming care comes in a number of different ways. Like when a woman, say an older woman, above the age of 18 gets breast implants. That's a form of gender-affirming care. It's trying to increase her feminine look. Some men who have enlarged breasts abnormally use a form of breast reduction to look more masculine. That is also a form of gender-affirming care. It's not exclusive to trans. And the reason I also bring this up is a lot of this hate leads to all these laws being targeted against trans, like doing away with gender-affirming care. Let's say hypothetically you got rid of gender-affirming care altogether. Is that going to stop people from being trans? No. That's just going to make their lives harder. Now, some people might say, why am I talking about this? It's because it's an attack on human rights, and I say that is wrong. I don't have a deep love or admiration for transgender people. I don't really know any. Like I said, I've only met like one or two in my time. I never really had a chance to talk to them. It's just a matter of, I don't like it when human rights are being stripped away from certain groups. And here's the real kicker. Out of everyone who complains about transgenders, the approximate transgender population in the United States is 0.5%, which, if you do the math, comes to approximately 1.4 million people. That's still a lot of people, don't get me wrong, but when you compare it to the population on a whole, it's not that much. And not every person that identifies as trans is going to extremes to have things done to them. Okay? So, again, there's a lot more to explore on it, and as far as like getting to better understanding of it, I don't see anything wrong with that. But if your first impression is you don't understand it, or you're being driven by fear-mongering or hate talk from certain lowlifes who just don't care, who are transphobic, then you're doing that for the wrong reasons. The truth be told is, it's there, it's real, and these are people. They're going through a thing with identity. So when somebody turns around and says, like Matt Walsh, he always likes to throw in bullet points and use the actual question as a way to challenge people or to like box them in a corner with like a gotcha moment, saying like, what is a woman? What difference does it make? The question's irrelevant. It's not about, what is biologically a woman. I can answer that question. But their identity may be for something else. Now, a lot of people like to associate it with mental illness, which I kind of understand why, but supposedly it is not a mental illness. It's just a matter of they identify with a different gender than what they're born with. and some of them, like I said, just prefer to be do by different pronouns. They may dress a little differently, but not always go to such extremes. And again, my only suggestion would be to, if there was a friend of mine who was a parent, who had a son or daughter who was telling me they identify as transgender, I wouldn't know exactly how to advise them. I would just simply say, for now, depending on the child's age, talk to a pediatrician or a child psychologist. Again, just talk to them, get advice and some suggestions on what to do. Don't do anything extreme. You don't have to put them on meds or anything like that. Sometimes if it's just gender affirming care where they're just talking to a psychologist, so they get a better understanding of whatever transition they're going or intend to go through, then I don't see a problem with that. And if they hear advice that they don't like, if they're being told to go to some extremes, get a second opinion at least. The truth is, I don't even fully understand it. I really don't, Again, is it something that they're born with, that they become transgender, or is it, something psychological? I'm really not sure. Could it be mental health? Maybe. But if that's the case, there's no reason why they can't get the treatment and healthcare that they need. And supposedly some people identify transgender at a certain young age, but grow out of it. And then just live out the rest of their lives at whatever gender they're biologically born with. But that is their choice. Therein lies the problem. These laws are being set up to target because they claim they care about children. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Ron DeSantis, they don't care about children. You know how I know? Like I've talked about in the past, which falls in line with their hate against LGBTQs, their racism, their bigotry. Do they get all up in arms when there's a school shooting? No, it's just thoughts and prayers, and they don't do anything to change anything because they don't care. Because Second Amendment rights mean more to them than the welfare of a child. During the Trump administration, do you hear a peep out of these people when they're being children put in cages at the borders? Nope. Okay. So I see, if it's white American children, well then there's something to be cared about, but migrants, brown children, nah. So much for the pro-life, all lives matters group. Another thing as far as childcare goes, I'm getting a little off topic here, but related to abortion, they want to protect the life of the child while it's in the womb. What happens when the child is born and it's a single mother who can't afford to provide for that child? Is there any federal funding that they propose for them? No. If it's a poor family, is there any type of support that they should get? No. Is there any type of special health care they should get for that child after birth or, during childbirth? No. Okay? So the whole thing about, we're thinking about the children, again, it is a bunch of BS. It is a bunch of bigotry, and they're just using it as an excuse to spread it and to hide it and make it seem like, we're good Christian people who really care about children. They don't care about children. They hate trans, they don't understand it, or they do, and they just hate it for whatever reason. It is nothing but ignorance. And they're using the skies of, we really care about children. And throw away all the bullet words like gender mediation, indoctrination, and all that. It is a crock, okay? If I had a son or daughter that was in school and they told me they were transgender, I would handle it the same way I just described. Talk to a pediatrician, talk to a child psychologist, educate yourself, get to understand what it is, and work with the child. Don't be judgmental, don't try and change them, just let them evolve on their own. But be supportive. And if they had somebody in school who was a transgender, I would say, well, you treat them like any other person. If they want to be identified by a certain pronoun, whatever that may be, then respect that. Respect their wishes. Call them by that pronoun. It is not a big deal. When you get lowlifes like Ted Cruz who say, my pronouns are kiss my, it's like, go to hell. Okay? Again, another ignorant, hateful person who's got nothing better to do than to hate a group of people that represent a very small minority of people in this country that aren't doing anything to hurt anyone. Like anyone else, they want to live their lives. We always hear a lot of these people all talk about freedom and everything. When they feel like they're being silenced, they get canceled on social media. My First Amendment, they're trying to cancel me. They're taking away my freedoms. When there's a school shooting, do they care about the kids? No. Again, it's about the guns, you know? They're trying to take your guns away. Your Second Amendment's right. They're taking away your freedoms. What about the freedom to identify with whatever gender you feel somebody feels comfortable with? Whatever you feel comfortable with. You don't want to use, like, at my job, some people use pronouns in their email signature. That's fine. I don't do that. But I don't spread hate either. I just say, if somebody's transgender, respect them like anyone else. Treat them like anyone else. Respect their pronouns. And if they go further into transitioning, as long as they're doing safely, you know, within a proper age limit, I see no problem with it. It is only a big deal unless you decide to turn it into one. So, I like to focus on the real issues. The fact that transgenders make such a small percentage of the population, I'm more focused on the real problems like healthcare, like homeless veterans, like feeding the poor. You really care that much about children? How about passing laws that provide free lunches to the children who live in insecure houses? You don't hear a lot about that from them. Oh, but transgenders, suddenly they're all up in arms. Give me a break. Okay? I'm not going to give in to the bigotry. I'm going to say I care about people of all walks of life, regardless of their gender or what their identity is. We should too, so. Anyway, it's getting a little sunny out, so I really hope you understand, and thank you for watching.